Born in 1899 in Brooklyn, New York, Alphonse Capone was born to immigrant parents. He moved to the outskirts of the Park Slope neighborhood where he encountered the Five Points Gang, led by Frankie Yale. In the gang was Charles Lucky Luciano, who would make a name for himself in future years. Yale employed Capone as a bartender and bouncer at a Harvard Inn on Coney Island after joining the gang. At the Harvard Inn, he was knifed in the face, becoming Scarface. While this became his nickname, he preferred Snorky. When Capone was 19, he moved to Chicago to work for Johnny Torrio, a previous mobster in Brooklyn, who, after he experienced an assassination attempt, gave his enterprise to Capone, who began immediately using fear tactics, violence, and large bribes to get his way with his infamous bootlegging and other illegal activities. However, Capone became extremely famous for his desire to be in the public eye. He was very outspoken, had interviews with reporters on the street, and was actually a very popular figure. He was seen as the Robin Hood of Prohibition. In his words, all I do is supply and demand. He even opened a soup kitchen during the Depression. However, the Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929 involved the murder of 7 members of a rival gang by Capone's men. This immediately and severely tarnished his reputation, even though he was never charged and was actually in Miami at the time. In 1931, after he said the government can't legally tax illegal money, Capone was charged with 22 counts of tax evasion and was sent to prison and later Alcatraz. There, his syphilis developed into neurosyphilis, causing dementia. He spent 3 years in a mental hospital after his sentence before dying in January of 1947. However, it is important to note that Alphonse Capone changed society through the establishment of organized crime by demonstrating methods of which to do so, using terror, economic affluence, and organization to gain immense wealth and power in society. Prohibition had initially intended to limit political bosses, public drunkenness, and the abuse of wives and families, but it was a large failure. Prohibition was still very controversial, and since Prohibition did not make illegal the actual consumption of alcohol, people only risked getting it. Capone decided to begin supplying the demand. Without Prohibition, Capone would have seen no reason to organize and create a massive bootlegging regime because the reward wouldn't be worth the risk. Capone established that money can buy hard-to-obtain power in society. To run the numbers, Capone made around $100 million annually through his various methods, largely from alcohol. In today's money, that is $1.4 billion per year. Capone could easily pay an officer $250,000 to keep quiet. Some officers actually became quite wealthy. He was paying around $500,000 to the police a month and strategically controlled the right amount of officers in an area to maximize his profits and ability to continue his activities. Bribes were an easy way to gain legal immunity. Al Capone used his economic dealings to affect society. If Americans wanted illegal booze, they obtained it from Capone, which means that they were unintentionally supporting him. Because Capone controlled all of the alcohol flow into Chicago, it seemed as though it was impossible to avoid supporting him in some way. Crime syndicates today use bribes and economic influence to get their way, a tactic used by the American Mafia. Capone was the first prominent gangster to make enormous success with these methods. He also changed society by establishing the wealth that could be made in the smuggling industry, providing foundational methods that modern drug trafficking syndicates may use and because of him are prevalent today. Capone's actions established violence and terror as a precedent for gaining power. He took advantage of his new position to strike fear into those standing in his way. A tactic he used against bars was that he would try to force them to buy his alcohol, and if they refused, he sent men to blow up the place and then pay to fix it so that the bar now became financially dependent on him. In his earlier years, he actually participated in intimidating and rigging a local election to get the candidate that he was controlling into office. Capone also had numerous hitmen, as demonstrated by the Valentine's Day Massacre. The psychological effect of an opponent to Capone was quite daunting. This man was above the law, had excess wealth at his disposal, and seemingly didn't even consider killing you worthy of his time, so he would send someone else to kill you instead. Capone used his position of power as a weapon to intimidate opposition to get what he wanted. Today, according to the United States Department of Justice, the Italian Mafia, or La Cosa Nostra, often threatened businesses and governments in order to gain control of their actions in America. This was an idea that Capone pioneered, demonstrating his effect on future organizations and their use of terror. One thing Al Capone did that no other gangsters could replicate was that he made the gangster popular. His life was impersonated by children, and movies were made, such as the original film Scarface in 1932. His legacy really made crime and the gangster life popular, and made people want to live the life Capone did, causing an increase in crime membership. Capone made the modern gangster appealing to the public and thus adding to the establishment of crime in America. This romanticism and idolization can be seen in photos of Pablo Escobar, notorious drug lord who posed for pictures dressed up as Al Capone at parties, one of his idols. Al Capone's methods, whether they were successes or failures, marked the beginning and greatly changed the design and methods of modern crime syndicates. Capone mastered the middleman in Prohibition. He matched distilleries and traders with buyers, he absorbed other sources of alcohol through violent or economic pressure, and he monopolized the city, creating a lot of profits. In the end, too much profits. Capone was unable to figure out what to do with it all, which led to his counts of tax evasion. This marked the beginning of money laundering, a process of hiding illegal money through different transactions to make the money look like it was obtained legally. Laundering still occurs today by individuals and crime syndicates alike, one of many ways Capone's fame to mark a change in society. Also, managing the finances of the bootlegging industry was extremely complicated. He and his men had to organize to keep track of their profits. Capone had his own office where he would take phone calls just like any businessman. Professionalizing crime became one of Capone's most lasting legacies. This also required much more workers, causing Capone and future syndicates to create bigger organizations with more people, meaning Capone affected the physical growth and membership and size of crime. The FBI estimates that there are around 3,000 members of the Italian Mafia today in the U.S. alone. Capone's organization tactics have been inherited by modern syndicates. Big Al was an influential American and changed society by establishing that crime syndicates could become very wealthy and powerful by using terror, bribery, and improved organization. Alphonse Capone caused the growth of modern-day organized crime.
Capone incentivized crime, thus causing more people to join it and causing many more developments to make crime more profitable and powerful.